Good evening, everybody, and welcome in the Black Box tonight. My name is Dirk van den Berg. I will be a little bit your host for today. You're all here to watch a really beautiful movie. I will explain a little bit later. But first, I'm really honored that the opening of today will be done by Vice President of the Executive Board, Wilma de Koning. And I think you prepared a nice speech for us today, so applause for Wilma.
I hope that, this one does also work. Well, very welcome to Tilburg University and to this special film evening. It is wonderful to see such a full room, a clear sign that the topic we are here for tonight truly resonates. This evening brings together science, sport and activism, united by a shared concern for the rapidly changing world around us. Tonight, we will watch Prominent Peaks, a film that tells us a powerful and timely story. It follows alpinist and athlete Christian de Jong, who set out to climb all 44 ultra-prominent peaks of the Alps. A very remarkable physical achievement, carried out in a fully climate-neutral way. But this film is about much more than mountaineering. It's a story about passion and perseverance, about responsibility, and about what it means to pursue excellence in a world under pressure. Through the mountains, the film confronts us with the urgent reality of climate change in high-altitude regions, places that may seem remote, but are deeply connected to our lives here. We meet here in a very particular moment in time. The United Nations has declared 2025, the National Year of Glaciers. The National Year of Glaciers Preservation. Around the world, glaciers are losing mass at an alarming rate. Scientists warn us that if global warming exceeds 1.5 degrees Celsius, most Alpine glaciers may disappear entirely within this century. The consequences are profound for water security, for biodiversity, and for the communities that depend on these fragile systems. These are not distant or abstract developments. They are unfolding now, and they concern us all. At Tilburg University, we strongly believe that addressing climate change is not only a technical challenge, but above all a social one. Through initiatives such as the Collaborative Center for Climate and Energy, de academische werkplaats Klimaat en Energie, we emphasize that the transition to sustainability requires behavioral change, fair and inclusive decision-making, and the removal of institutional and governance barriers. It's about how citizens, policymakers, scientists, and organizations work together, and how questions of justice and responsibility are placed at the heart of the transition. Within our work on broad prosperity, we focus on creating sustainable futures through interdisciplinary research, dialogue, and co-creation with partners beyond the university. And exactly this is where this evening becomes especially meaningful, because facts and technologies alone do not move people. Change also requires imagination, emotion, and hope. Our Climate Hope project highlights the importance of creative and artistic expressions, such as this film does, in offering perspective, action, and perhaps a little bit hope. Stories help us to possess loss, to face difficult truth, and to envision alternative futures worth striving for. Christian de Jong pushes physical boundaries, and he does that in the mountains, and we will see that in a minute. Here at Tilburg University, we aim to push intellectual and societal boundaries. Not to preserve nature only for sport and beauty, but to safeguard a livable future for current and future generations in all its social and ecological dimensions. After the film, we will continue the conversation with the panel that connects scientific, societal, and ethical perspective from our university and the wider community. You will hear from Lande van Tricht, glaciologist at the Vrije Universiteit Brussel, an expert on glacial loss in Central Asia and the Alps. Martijn Groenleer, professor and driving force behind the Collaborative Center for Climate and Energy, who focuses on governance and regional cooperation. And Morten Byskov, philosopher specializing in ethics, just transitions, and the role of hope in climate communication. And together, they will help us connect what we see on screen to science, society, and moral responsibility. I really do hope that this evening will inspire you all to reflect, to ask questions, and perhaps most importantly, to consider how our own, your own, my own passion can be turned into purpose. Thank you, Dirk. Thank you, Green Office. Thank you, Studium Generale. Thank you, all the people who organized this evening. And I wish you a truly inspiring evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Welcome. Maybe you've seen the tree when you entered this this building. This beautiful tree made of cardboard. Thank you. And we would like to ask during the film, if you come up with something, you think, okay, this is what I can do tomorrow. This is what I can do in my work. This is what I can do in my neighborhood, or this is what I can do on in a political scheme or whatsoever. Please think of it, and we will hand out green notes afterwards to write it down, and we can post it all like leaves on the big tree, and then we have a tree of hope afterwards. So please think of a question or a thing you might do when it comes to climate action. Before we kick off the film, Wilma said a minute. Well, it takes 5 minutes. I have this presentation ready. So what you're about to see is prominent peaks. And when we started this project in 2024, Christian came to us and said, hey, I'm going to climb the 44 ultra prominent peaks. You will hear about what a prominent peaks is in a minute. And came to us and said, hey, do you want to make a documentary out of it? And then we started to evolve, and it ended up in the film we just about to see. It's sponsored by some outdoor companies, and well, these are a little bit the metrics you've seen. For today, it couldn't be possible, and Wilma said it already, with the Studium Generale and with the Academische Werkplaats Klimaat en Energie. And to start the Studium Generale, I don't know, are there any students in the room? Yes, yes. So if you attend 5 of the Studium Generale and you have to fill in some survey or some reflections, you get like a certificate for it. So please join even more some of the events of Studium Generale. And I'm really happy that Martijn Groenleer reached out and said, hey, can we help you to promote and co-host this film as well? The Academische Werkplaats Klimaat en Energie, the Academic Collaborative Center, is combining research with companies, with organizations that are willing to make that extra step. And they join forces together. We will speak about it a little bit later. Where research meets policy and practice, and that's where it happens. And it's a really beautiful initiative here at the university, where you see that society and research can benefit and make an extra step. I'm also asked to say something about the Green Office, and the Green Office is quite a new office here at campus since last summer. It's in the old coffee house. What was the name again? Starbucks, thank you. In the old Starbucks, and it's like a hub where all the things happening at the university, whether it's research, whether it's education, whether it's from the organization, comes together. So it's a little bit of a, I explain it always as a hub where stories about sustainability can happen. And it's open on Tuesday and on Thursday, so if you have an idea or just want to talk about this one, or you want to host an event around sustainability in the widest sense, please contact the Green office. So I'll give you now 5 seconds to scan the QR. Okay. And then we're about to go to the film. For me, this evening is a really, really special one because two of my passions come together. And one of this is I work at the university as an impact developer research. So my daily job is to help research translate their knowledge into something practical for society. But I'm also founder of the NGO called Protect Our Winters. And to have this film, which we produce by Protect Our Winters, hosted here at the university, is a real special addition for me. And what we do with Protect Our Winters, and Wilma said it really beautiful, we turn your passion into purpose. And our NGO focuses on the outdoor industry, meaning skiers, snowboarders, climbers, mountain bikers, surfers, to say, hey, if you love your sport so much, if you love the thing you do so much, please make that extra step to make it future safe, to preserve it for other generations. And that's what we do. I will do it a little bit faster because you want to see the film. And we are on a mission, and the mission is to rally the outdoor community to lead on climate action, which means everybody who loves the outdoors, loves to hike, loves to ski, snowboard, I'm asking you, please step up and do something about it. It can mean you don't have to fly that much. Please take the train to the Alps if you go skiing. If you go play soccer, don't go by car to your soccer practice. Normally, I think it's around, 5 to 10 minutes with a bike. So small steps and small actions can really make a difference in climate change. And we say, if you love the outdoors, if you love nature, then you're a little bit obliged to do so. What we do, we focus on 3 things. We speak up for climate policy, we change the way we travel, and we're transforming our sports from within. And especially the first one, when I started the NGO 3 years ago, I would not be expected that I was talking to members of parliament in Brussels to talk about climate policy. I don't know if you know the Green Deal, the Nature Restoration Law, all those kind of regulations that happen in Europe are under pressure. They're watered down already, but when we say we are not just in the Netherlands, we are European-based, so Protect Our Winters is in entire Europe, we have a big audience. So 180 million people are considered to be outdoor people. So if you say, okay, we represent 180 people with those companies, with those federations, with those travel agencies, we have a big following. So, and that's slowly but certainly happening. We've made this theory of change. You see the same 3 buttons as on this slide. So those 3 are the same 3. And we do that by advocacy, education, and collaboration. Quickly, education, we give climate literacy initiative, climate literacy training to companies, organizations, but we also give education programs for primary schools. We collaborate with brands, like we collaborate with Bever, Patagonia, Raab, all those companies that say, yes, we know that we take something from nature, so we have to give something back. And we do the advocacy work, meaning we try to say that to each and everybody, and also the companies, hey, you have to speak up, you have to do something. Some images what we do. So 2 years ago were the European election. We had a big campaign coming. So ride, bike, climb, vote. If you love to ride a bike or a snowboard, if you love to bike, if you love to climb, then you need to vote. And maybe you know the people who vote on national level are way higher than in Europe. But I don't think people fully understand the impact of legislation from Europe for our own country. So we said, okay, go vote. And you see us here standing before the European Parliament in Strasbourg. And in the middle, top in which you see me with Mohammed Khahim. You know him, right? Who's a member of parliament, a Dutchman from Helmond in Strasbourg. And we handed over this petition, which was signed by 200 brands, saying, hey, you have to keep fight for the Green Deal. So that's the policy part. We also push those brands. And last September, we had the first brand advocacy day at Tony Chocolonely, not our same industry. They make chocolate and they fight for against slavery in the chocolate supply chain. But they're on a mission, and we're a little bit on the same mission, but then for nature. So we went to Tony's, and you see all those people there are CEOs, COOs, sustainability managers of all those big companies, from, like I said, the North Face, Mammut, all those outdoor brands. And we cycled from Tony's to Patagonia. Both offices are in Amsterdam, and we talked about not how can you become sustainable as a company, but how can you use your voice to speak up loud in policy making. And we do also fun stuff, because that's what we love. Last April we were in this glacier cave in Austria, and then you see with your own eyes how special it is. And we were guided by this Dutch guide, and he said, okay, 5 years ago this glacier was way bigger, and most likely in 2 or 3 years this glacier cave will completely be gone because it melts, and which is really lost because it was so amazing to be in there. And we collaborate. What you see, we ask our community to make a design for a beautiful bottle, which now is being sold in Bever in the stores. So you see a combination of creative people, the brands, and a part of the price you pay for the bottle comes back to our NGO. So that's a little bit about Protect Our Winters. We just announced that we went from Protect Our Winters Netherlands to Power Benelux, but that's another thing. And now I think it's time to see the film. The film is I'm really proud of the film. We had the premiere in Tuschinski. Last week we had it in the Parktheater in Eindhoven. And now we have the streaming here. And I think it's a really beautiful personal story of Christian de Jong, who had this idea of climbing 44 peaks, ultra prominent peaks of the Alps. And what you're going to see is his journey, his experience on those tops. He didn't do it alone. He had a lot of climbers with him, but he was the only one who climbed the 44 peaks alone in a time window of 2 years. And what he feels, what he sees, and how he his reflections on this physical challenge was, you'll see in the film, and I think it's a beautiful one. So enjoy the film, and we see each other in. That's a fun fact. The director said, "Okay, I want to make the film 44 minutes, 44 peaks, 44 minutes." It takes 44 minutes and 640 seconds now, we say. So it's a little bit longer, but we've got a lot of more footage. So. Yeah, so let's enjoy the film. Have fun. And it's all zoveel keer. This is the 10th time I think I watched this movie, but it really hits me, especially the moment when he walks down and gets emotional and thinks, and he's so grateful for what he is doing. I really hope you enjoyed this one. We are now continuing with a panel discussion with 3 really good people about this topic. I will introduce you in a minute. Please come forward, Lander, Martijn and Morten. So it's an international panel. Lander from Belgium, Martijn from the Netherlands, and Morten from Denmark. So we have a very good team. Lander is expert in glaciers also a member of the POW Science Alliance. And Martijn and Morten, you're both working here at our university. Welcome. We invited you to for this panel discussion, and we prepared some questions, of course. But first, what do you think of the movie?
Well, it's super nice to see him climbing all these peaks, really being aware of the environment and also how it changes, to see the amazing landscape. So I really like the movie. Yeah.
And Martijn, you're a climber, and you actually brought your son, who was really so the youngest.
Who is also a climber and hopes to be able to climb at least some of these peaks. So some we've been near to. The Wildspitz, but amazing, and definitely something to preserve and to to be very I mean, you would get activists. Yeah, definitely.
And Morten, we just talked briefly before this session. You are a little bit afraid of heights, so you wouldn't.
A little bit.
What do you think of this one?
I find it fascinating. I've always been very intrigued by mountain climbing in that sense, right? The drive that mountain climbers have to expose themselves to the nature, the elements, but drive themselves forward. We saw some really bad weather in the movie, and I would have just turned around, I think. But so I'm very inspired by that, and hopefully I can bring it into other aspects of my life.
Yeah. Thank you. First, a question for you, Lander. We saw Larissa van der Laan in the movie. Your colleague. You're working together on combining data sets. You can explain a little bit better. But she also said, okay, in the Alps and especially the glaciers, they're a little bit the canary of climate change, meaning what you see happening in the mountains is going twice as fast as we see here. Can you tell us or take us with us in that logic?
Yeah, so we are glacier modelers. We look at glaciers, how they are today, and then we simulate how they evolve in the future. And glaciers are the canary in the coal mines of climate change, the ambassadors of climate change. Why is this? Well, glaciers respond very fast to climatic changes. Corals are bleaching, but it's very hard to see what's happening below sea level. But if you look at this documentary, if you go to the Alps for skiing or for alpinism in summer, you really see in front of your eyes what is happening with the environment. And so what we are doing is modeling all the glaciers on Earth, and the Alps actually is one of the regions where changes are happening fastest among all mountain ranges on Earth.
Yeah. And Larissa said, okay, we can still do something about it. We can still reverse it in some way. In what way is that possible? Because I heard someone say if we go in this climb of temperature rise, the majority of the glaciers will be lost by the end of this century.
Yeah, reverse is difficult, and in the end, if we see on the impact of the projected temperature rise on the glaciers, there is for some regions, like for example the Alps, very little we can do actually. Even in a 1.5 degree warming scenario, and we're almost there already, it's very unrealistic that we will keep warming below 1.5, we will lose 70% of all ice in the Alps. If the world would warm 2.7 degree, and that's at present the current policy level where we seem to head to, then we will lose about 90% of all ice in the Alps. So that's a big difference between 1.5 and 2.7, but in the end it's pretty small, the difference. So it means that anyway in the Alps we'll lose most ice. And now we're only talking about the total ice in the Alps, because if we zoom into every individual glaciers, it's even much more dramatic. In a 2.7 degree warming world, we'll only keep 100 glaciers in the Alps out of the 3,000 we have today.
Thank you for this one. I'll get back to you a little bit later. Martijn, you are the academic lead of the Collaborative Center of Climate and Energy, and you're specialized in governance. So how should we collaborate? How should we work together to have this just climate transition? Maybe for the audience, can you explain a little bit what you do with the Collaborative Center?
What we do? Yes, so we work together across disciplines, and at Tilburg we have the social sciences primarily, right? So we don't have glacier professors like Lander here, but we do work with other universities also who have the technical expertise, but we have the social science expertise here, like economists, lawyers, psychologists, theologists, data scientists, etc., who work on climate policy, energy transition, things like that. Because, well, we can do something about it, at least to some extent, but then we collectively should act. So, and this, for instance, is a difficult thing, right? Because this is a collective action problem in a way, right? And this is what some of our professors, PhDs have expertise about. So how to go about when, you know, everyone sees, or most people recognize the problem, but then how to get people act on this, right? People adopt a waiting attitude, right? So, well, it's government should act, or the market should act, or, you know, individual citizens or communities should act. I think it should be a combination of all of these, but then how to get those people acting. So this is what we do research about. This is what we also collaborate across disciplines, and I said, and also with others in society. So we collaborate with government, but also with, for instance, the grid operators. So in here it's Enexis, for instance. There's, you know, as part of the energy transition and the transition to renewables, we need to invest massively also in the grid, in adapting the grid. So these are also, very, you know, there's also a lot of infrastructure involved. And this also means in the short term, for instance, that we emit perhaps a bit more CO2 even in order to reach or to, well, to preserve at least some of the glaciers in the end.
And in the film, Christian at one point says, "Okay, we're now we're heading the right direction to the summit, but we're on the wrong path." I think that's really exemplary.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So yeah.
For collaborating with, so you work together, not knowing exactly where to go in this transition.
In a way, I mean, there's clear targets. There's clear goals internationally at the European level, the national level, the regional level, even, right? So there's a clear goal, but there's different ways to get there. There's different paths to the summit, right? And he also pointed out that you know, it's not easy to reach the summit. You can get there in many different ways. You have to, I mean, and you know, that's to some extent reaching the summit. There is a bit of a technical exercise, but when trying to reach those climate targets, you know, we need to deal with a lot of different interests, different perspectives, and how to align those. And then you know, it's a lot of people have a lot to lose, right? Companies, also governments, individual citizens have a lot to lose. Yeah. So how do you change that perspective so to, you know, what can be gained here, and what, you know, so from so changing from a very negative tone, and we briefly discussed this before, you know, to changing it into a narrative about, you know, what can be gained, the hope for the future, and that's, I think, is very important.
Yeah. A nice bridge with the collaborative center is the Climate Hope project you launched in what was it, December? No, it's for you. For you, Morten. I'm really glad you're here. About the ethics of climate change. About I think a little bit deeper in about it. My first question is, how do you see like a film like this, or storytelling in relation with climate action?
So what the problem is with climate change often is something that's very far away, often very far in the future. The major impact of today's emission will only be experienced by future generations. It's often something that's far away. We're talking about glaciers. For Dutch people, it's something that we don't encounter every day, right? What we can do with climate fiction, documentaries such as this, we can visualize what may be lost. Mm-hmm. by climate change. Now, you don't need a philosopher to tell you this, right? From a philosophical perspective, I think climate art, climate fiction counts also under that, can play two roles. So one is on the personal level and another one is more on the interpersonal reflective level. When we watch documentaries like this, we get an emotional response. We see something that's beautiful, we see these beautiful glaciers, we think, oh my God, something is lost here. We realize this is something that we value. We value that as something that we think needs to be protected. We see things that we should try and protect, morally speaking. So we realize what are our values, what do we need to protect. We can often see that maybe it's something that is under threat. So this is what we call moral emotion. Right? We have emotions that speak to our moral values. On the more interpersonal level, what it can do is set the settings for a discussion like we're having today and what will be happening in the cafe afterwards. Right? It says about, starts a conversation about what should we do, how should we confront these, the breakdown of climate change, how should we act to protect these moral emotions that we have, the values that we are faced with when looking at these documentaries, reading climate fiction, watching series that talks about climate change and its effects.
Yeah, and maybe reflect. Wilma and I had a discussion yesterday, and often sustainability or practicing sustainability is something like something you do, or okay, now I'm doing sustainability and now I'm going to move on with something else. And in fact, it like climate action or make that step extra. It shouldn't be something you do on a Monday morning from 11 to 12, right? It's something you need to incorporate in your daily behavior, whether you're a person, whether you're an organization or a company, because otherwise what we need to protect is just a subject or something. Is this also something you investigate, do research about?
Not particularly, no. Okay. Sorry.
Well, then we had it wrong discussion.
Let's move on. No, but so I think it's also important to be real about what we can achieve with this kind of art. Right? We can start a conversation about it, but we're also not going to get anywhere unless we address many of the structural, institutional barriers there are to living sustainable lives, for example.
Yeah, thank you. In the meantime, is there someone in the audience who would like to ask a question already? I see one hand. Can you speak up, or do you need? Yeah.
Yes, thank you to all the panelists and people for organizing this. There was a lot of talk, both in the introduction by the Vice President of the CBB and now in the discussion about imagination and about climate hope and so on. But speaking as an alien, let's say I'm no Dutchman, I'm no European. The documentary and the discussion strikes me as quite unhopeful, one might say, in the sense that the documentary itself is exemplary in a different way, and that is of a certain, like, very plain relationship with nature. So I don't know if I'm the only one in the audience, but the challenge itself of Christian, as praiseworthy as it might be, seems a bit, I mean, it's a very Dutch documentary, a very Dutch challenge. So I'm going to conquer the 44 peaks. Since I came to the Netherlands not so long ago, I've been very, very exposed to this sort of nature, climate discourse of conquering nature, right? We are the country that took land away from the ocean, and we're very proud because we can sort of defeat nature. So the documentary seems exemplary to me in that sense. So not very hopeful and not very imaginative. I don't know if that's maybe an impression as a foreigner, as an alien. Because all the time I was also thinking and comparing of other kinds of approaches to the glacier crisis. So I'm thinking, for example, of the work of artist Teresa Bocassino, who had an exposition in Utrecht recently from her project Glacier Resurgence. So she works on the glacier, the Quelcaya glacier in Peru, the biggest tropical glacier in the world, which is also heavily under threat. And Teresa's relationship with the glacier is very different. In the documentary, there are barely any people, right? It's rocks, it's snow. It's the trees at the end is the most beautiful thing I think, right? When he's looking for the Alpine, and then you say, okay, where is the, this is sort of, re-enchanting. We were talking with my colleague before, sort of the importance of re-enchanting nature. And I don't see that in the documentary. At the end, in the credits, when the credits were rolling, special thanks to the Alps. But, the Alps barely appear. I think that's what's paradoxical about this documentary, that the Alps barely appear. We see mountains, we see peaks, we see people conquering nature, but we see very little of, nature itself. So that's my comment. I don't know if there's a sort of question there, but yes, that's sort of a reaction.
Just keep the mic. Do you think? Thank you for your observation. I really think it's really insightful to see from a perspective we conquer the Alps. We had a discussion. Okay, so thank you very much for your question. Last week, we had also a film evening with Christian, and he didn't. I don't want to defend him, but it wasn't about conquering. It was about seeing if that was possible for him. And then combining with the try to make a documentary to make people aware of it. But your insights about conquering the world is really challenging for us as well. But how would you see this film helping the discussion going on to, okay, we need to make an extra step. So maybe this film could be made for Dutchies, so it resonates with them in the perfect way.
Yeah, I think I've watched a couple of Norwegian films here in the movies, and the reactions in the audience watching this film were very similar to the reactions watching Norwegian films, because I think maybe Norway is also like a place for Dutch people in which is like, oh my nature. So here is also like, because we don't see that here, right?
Maybe we are a little bit too detached from nature as other places in the world.
But I don't think it's detached. That's what I was trying to say before, right? It is a particular attachment to nature, but in a, I don't know how to qualify it, but nature is very present in the Netherlands, but it's just a sort of conquered nature. Yeah. A nature that we
come from Peru?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I come from Colombia. So
thank you very much.
Yes.
We continue with the question, or was there someone else who had a question for now? Then we continue. Glaciers are not just part for you, London. Glaciers are not just part of a symbol for climate change. They have also this cultural or natural heritage. Is this something, as a scientist, you also take into account when you do your research, or is it just maybe in line with what you said, just measuring the ice melting and that's it?
Yeah, I think it fits a bit on the border between your comment. Like glaciers, they serve different goals, and one of them is that they are just beauties in nature. And this movie really shows like we want to go to nature to see this beauty, this unique features of the landscape. So that's really what this movie is showing. But on the other hand, glaciers are also our natural reservoirs, and that's, for example, in South America or in Asia, where there is barely any rain in summer. Well, exactly in these months, glaciers provide water for downstream communities. So glaciers are crucial for local people there. On the other hand, glaciers are also contributing to sea level rise. So what's happening in South America makes sure sea levels in the harbor of Rotterdam are rising. So This is a global problem, and it's not only about the beauty of nature that we want to preserve, but also about these real impacts glacier changes have on Earth. And what we as scientists often overlooked is really this emotional value of glaciers. And that's because when we are interested in the big numbers, sea level rise, for example, we only look at the big glaciers on Earth, or Greenland or Antarctica, and we not look at these small glaciers in remote valleys in the Alps, for example. And so what we are now more and more do as scientists is really to give value also to these small glaciers, because every individual glacier, as tiny as it can be very important for a local community. If you have seen always a glacier outside of your window, if that glacier suddenly disappears, it can really hit you emotionally. And so for that reason, we also want to know how many glaciers are disappearing, and not only the big ones, but also the very small ones. And I think one example that is really making this connection are glacier funerals that are organized nowadays, and where thousands of people go to places to say goodbye to the ice. That really makes clear that people are attached to the ice.
Is that maybe you can reflect on those funerals?
Not the funerals per se, but I think what you're touching upon is this idea. We often, and it also follows a bit from the comment from the audience before, and we often see the relation between humans and nature as one of domination. Right? It's often that we see humans have a right to use nature as a resource. Often the response to that is, well, we need to protect nature from human encroachment. Right? We can't let humans destroy nature, we can't let humans use nature, but that kind of changed the focus away from the relationship that humans have to nature and how nature has to humans, which is an interdependent relationship. I think Vilma mentioned it in her initial comments, right? There are many communities around the world that depend on glaciers for their survival, right? For drinking water, for example, in the Andes is often the case. So we need to look at what is this relationship? How can we work towards a sustainable relationship between humans and nature, where humans have a right to still use nature, but in a sustainable way.
I think that's where the crucial part is. I know that, like, as individuals, if we only take cold showers for 3 minutes, we don't eat meat anymore, we don't fly, a really important one. It still only saves like 4 or 5% of the total carbon emission worldwide. So it's the big companies, the big oil companies that are still polluting the world. Maybe for you, Martijn, as a specialist in governance, how do you see that we can push those bigger organizations, starting here in the Netherlands, to do the right thing? Is that something that is possible? Do we need like personal skills for that one, or do we need more policy on national or European level?
Easy question. And I tried to connect it to what has been said before, because this could come across as very technocratic otherwise. And I think our discussion has moved into the direction of establishing a different kind of relationship between nature and mankind. So I think that got lost, especially in the Netherlands, I think, right? So so I didn't see the movie as trying to conquer, but yeah, you could see it like that. But I would like to see it as trying to find a way to, live in a more harmonious relationship with nature, and then, being in the Alps could be part of it. So that, I think, and that is difficult to capture in policy, etc. I think we have a lot of policy already, right? So the main thing is that most of it should be implemented in practice, and a lot of it, also climate policy, is not implemented. So a lot of goals will not be met because we have policies, but they're not implemented on the ground. They're not so companies, so the big companies have not decarbonized enough. So the state is not fulfilling its commitments, legally binding commitments. So all these things need to happen. And at the same time, at the very local level, we also see that change is different. It's difficult. It's very difficult to change behavior because you have to give up something, right? So I think the solution is not so much more policy or more strict policy. So it's first starting to try implement all the policy we have and try to make a difference at the global level, because you mentioned, well, it's both something we need to tackle globally, and it's something we need to try and find solutions for at the very local level, where people experience the negative effects, communities in the Alps or across the world, or people here in Tilburg, experiencing already in living in impoverished neighborhoods, and then experiencing high energy prices, for instance, as a result of the transition. So I think we need to tackle that in combination. So it's both from the top down, so to speak, and then from the bottom up, I think.
Glad to read that the new coalition agreement mentioned climate that much in the new. Oh no, they didn't mention it. No. My last question, and then go back to the audience. So with Protect Our Winters, we tried to say, okay, if you love the outdoors, you need to become an activist, and because what you love, you need to preserve. What do you think, all three? What should we do as a university, as human beings, to inspire and to ask everybody else to say, okay, what can you do tomorrow? What can you do to do? So what is needed to become a little bit more activist?
When I speak for myself, then I find it difficult, this balance between education, science, and activism. So I want to do objective science, and you will not find myself on knocking on the door of the European Parliament to say this needs to be happen. I want to provide like objective the numbers, and I feel, or I think, my credibility as a scientist would become smaller if I really am also activist. But I would motivate people to let them hear their voice and to convince them that if we do something together, that we have bigger chance that something will happen on a higher level. So I think convincing, motivating people to bring up their voice and that it might matter. That's what I would recommend.
Morten, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think you said it best in your introduction before. Vote, hold those who have the power to make a change accountable for making that change.
Well, we have municipality elections coming up. So. Last one for you.
So I completely understand your perspective. There's also scientists at this university, for instance, that have been working on climate economics for a while, and then got very frustrated with the fact that a lot of our research isn't taken up in policy. And as a result of that, have been protesting on the A12, right? So joining Extinction Rebellion, which is, I think, perfectly legitimate, especially given the fact that you've already tried so hard to make your point through supposedly neutral research. I don't believe in the in value neutrality in science, but also, so it's a difficult thing for scientists. But and so if we have research and if we feel it's not taken up sufficiently, I think it's perfectly legitimate to try and persuade those in power in other ways, and it's also part of our responsibility. So you can do this in very different manners, of course, and I think by sitting here already, you make an effort, and by informing people on the fact that what's actually happening there. I think the facts are still very important, especially in these times, and I think we should keep sharing the facts as much as possible. And you have very valid and important information to share, just like you about the fact, the notion about how the moral and emotional aspects of this. I think we should share what we know about this, and through our expertise and knowledge inform, well, politics, policy, as well as the public, especially in these post-truth area of eras. Sorry.
There,
Thank you.
I think we're really like out of
Yeah,
time.
we like to
so
speak. One last question because a lot of students are here, and I'm really curious, and maybe that's a question for the drinks afterwards, but I really would love to hear your thoughts on this one, how you could implement your ideas, how to speak up on this part. So maybe if there's one or two that have a question right now. 3, 2, 1. Yeah. Last one, and then okay.
The entire world is talking about technology. Technology is progress. Technology is science, and we are in a scientific environment. The question is probably addressed at Landa. Which technologies are being developed to save these resources, such as glaciers, but yeah, everything, all in the Alps and in other ecosystems? Thank you. Thank you.
Well, at a global scale, there is only one way to save glaciers, and that's to limit global warming. And for that, we know the solutions. It's to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. If we go to touristic places on Earth, and the most touristic place on Earth for glaciers is the Alps, then we see that there also exist other solutions. And that's, for example, covering glaciers with blankets, which are somehow white blankets, and they reduce the melt below these blankets with 90%. This is not possible on large scales, on big glaciers, because they move and these blankets, they get squeezed, and in the end they pollute the environment. But if you have a very touristic glacier, like for example Rhone Glacier in Switzerland, where millions of people go to visit the ice cave, then it's worth it to cover the ice cave with this blanket and to make sure that this ice cave is accessible for 20 years instead of 5 years. But these solutions are not possible on large scales, unfortunately.
We leave it at here because I really see those thirsty blicks things. Can I have a really big applause for our panel of today, Lander, Martijn, and Morten. I'm really thankful and grateful that you have took the effort to come here, and hopefully you will take tomorrow some extra steps into climate action. And please don't forget to write down your wish, your first step tomorrow on this green post-its, and to put it on the big tree. Thank you very much.
Thank you.